And then my name is Gail Osborne, and I'm the Executive Director of Foster Family Alliance. I have been fostering, adoptive, and guardianship of a child for the last 15 years. I run an organization called Foster Family Alliance, which is we have the incredible opportunity to be the voice of our kinship, adoptive, and foster families in North Carolina. We have a contract with the state of North Carolina to kind of be the liaison, the training, coaches. I mean, you name it. We've got our hands in the pot. I did want to introduce two people. They don't have to come on camera, but two people that you may see chatting or interacting with you tonight is Kate Schultz, and she is our director of development, and then Connie Holt, clinical and business. She does a lot at our organization, and so we just wanted to welcome you. We wanted you to be able to see what's available. And this is very tiny amounts, will reflect upon the educational setting, but it's also more of an informational to see what children that are involved with child welfare are eligible to receive in the state of North Carolina. And ultimately at the end, I will open it up for questions and also ask you a question. So as I said, we are the Foster Kinship and Adopted Parent Association. So if you think about like a school, how the PTA or the PTOs support the school, that's kind of what we do. We advocate for changes. We advocate for rights for foster parents, kinship providers. We kind of are liaison between the state and our families that are in North Carolina in these roles. So our mission is that we're going to educate, advocate, support, and promote those partnerships across the state. And you'll hear me refer to the term resource families, and that is a word that encompasses your foster, kinship, and adoptive families. It's just a lot shorter. So we are family led. So all of us that are employed by Foster Family Alliance, we are doing a peer-to-peer model. We all have lived experience, or we have been in child welfare. We have a couple of people who actually have worked front lines in the child welfare. One is a foster and adoption worker, and another as support staff. And so when we come to the table, and I just had this discussion with someone the other day, we're coming to the table and understand the shoes that people are walking in when you say I'm a foster parent, adoptive, or kinship caregiver. So we're just going to jump right in. And so in North Carolina, if a child is in custody of the state of North Carolina, and you'll hear about them being in custody of, let's say, Buncombe County or Guilford County or Onslow County, the children are automatically eligible for free lunch for school age. You are also eligible for daycare, after school, and summer camp. And I see a couple of you writing. We'll make sure you get this PowerPoint so that you don't have to take notes fervently all the way through it. The key to getting the vouchers for daycare is that the caregiver has to work full time. There are some counties that will do a part-time voucher, but most counties want the caregiver working full time to receive that voucher. So if the child's in custody, daycare is paid for. You also would have access to WIC, the Women, Infant, and Children program, ages birth through 5. And so that will take care of formula, that will take care of some groceries and things like that. And so so that's not a hindrance for someone taking in a child that young. The child would also receive Medicaid for medical, which includes physical and behavioral. So all things that are medically necessary for physical health as well as behavioral health, and then also dental. So one of the things that we often get questions around is like, how do you get the vouchers? Like there's not like a department that just handles the vouchers. And what it is, it's an umbrella department called Work First. And under that umbrella are many, many, many different programs. And some of them I just talked to you about. So the idea of Work First was initially created around diversion and retention of families. So if having a voucher would let mom be able to go to work and provide for the family, and there were certain income requirements met, then you could get that. And so what I have done into this PowerPoint is created the link so that you can actually see the information. And so this is straight from the DHHS website where you can go and read about it, and we'll come back around to it several ways. But daycare vouchers, are under that. There are stipends that fall under that for families that are providing guardianship. And one of the things to explain about guardianship that we're talking about here tonight is not your guardianship of an adult. These are guardianship cases that are determined in court based upon children under the age of 18 and looking for permanency for that child. And so it's very different in the world of adults and children, but the word is used and a lot of times it's confused. So tonight we're talking about children under the age of 18. And it's not connected to guardianship as with a child with a disability, an adult with a disability. The other thing is, we get asked often, like, how do you even access this information? How do you go and sign up for the vouchers? How do you get those stipends and Medicaid? And ultimately, it goes through the Work First program at your county DSS. So whatever county you reside in is where you would access it. But the other part is, and I think it's a really neat, incredible process, is to go through the E-Pass system, because even once you do qualify for it, you get a lot of your communication through the E-Pass system. So I always encourage people to fill out the E-Pass first, and go ahead, and they're going to ask for the different items and the documents, and immediately someone from your local DSS office will reach out. All right, so looking at resources, and this is a fairly new program. It is not in all 100 counties, and I've listed the counties that they're in, but it's called we call it the NC HOP. So it's the North Carolina Healthy Opportunities Program. It is a program that is in 3 different areas in the state. They fall under these counties. If a child has Medicaid, ultimately, and then secondly, if they live in one of these counties, thirdly, they have to have a medical and or behavioral identification or diagnosis attached to them. So an example would be a child with autism. And this does not have to be children that are just in custody, but this is something that we can have access to. Then you're eligible for food benefits. And so the food benefits look different than your traditional SNAP or EBT benefits. These programs right here are through Medicaid, and each organization that's been created here, the Access East, Community Care Lower, Cape Fear, and then the Impact Health, they interpret it just a little bit different. But just to give you an example, Impact Health through Buncombe County, where I live, and I have a child with autism that qualified for NC HOP. And so every Thursday we get several large boxes of food delivered, and it is not food that is almost expiring or anything like that. It truly was milk that was 10 days out from expiration. It was fresh bread that was 2 weeks out from expiration. It was canned foods that were name brand. And so you can tell there's a difference in what they're delivering. And that's the other thing, is that they will deliver it to your home. Some of them you can opt in to go pick them up, but this is a new program. It is accessible through children that are in child welfare. So foster parents, kinship providers, adoptive parents can also access this program. So this is one that we're just beginning to find out more information and see how it's rolled out. So we often hear that children that are adults that are wanting to support children that are in foster care, like I can't afford their medical. I can't, that I can't pay the co-pays, things like that. And the ultimate thing is that in North Carolina, all children that are in custody or in child welfare custody come with Medicaid. And also when you think about children that are being adopted from child welfare, they also will get Medicaid. And so you will hear a lot of talk out there right now about Medicaid expansion, Medicaid changes that are happening. And the big thing that I wanted to put on your radar, and again, if you want to dig deeper, each of these that are highlighted blue and underlined, those are pages that'll lead you to like a deeper dive into that. But your standard plans are your kids that Medicaid, that are just your basic level Medicaid plans. So they're eligible for the physical, they're eligible for the behavioral and the dental. But there doesn't seem to be like higher needs around behavioral. There doesn't seem to be a lot of higher needs around the medical pieces. It's just what I would say average child. Your tailored plans, those are run by, and you hear the words Managed Care Organization or MCO in North Carolina. And they are listed down here at the bottom of how, and these are organizations that run Medicaid and have tailored plans. So tailored plans are for your children that have a little more intensive needs. Let's say they may need respite. They need someone to give the caregivers a break. They need more intensive in-home services. You'll hear intensive in-home or day treatment or residential, different terms like that. Those children would go under tailored plan. Also under tailored plan are your children that have intellectual disabilities or developmental delays. So autistic children, children that are diagnosed with fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, things like that. And so they would go under tailored plan because there's a little more unique things that are there. Shannon, we'll come back to questions in just a little bit, just so I can roll everything out. But the cool thing is, and we're pretty excited about this, is that it is planned in December of 2024. Now, the word on the street is it won't roll out in December of 2024, but that's when legislatively it's supposed to. So I expect there to be a change. It's that all children that are involved with child welfare, and that those children will be served under the new Child and Family Specialty Plan. And the state of North Carolina just announced that Healthy Blue is going to be the one to administer that plan. And Healthy Blue is the Medicaid extension of Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. And so we're pretty excited about the fact that this is going to put all of our children that are in child welfare under one umbrella of one service, under one managed care scenario, so that we're not dealing with so many different people and so many different layers. And anyone that has any knowledge about child welfare or children that are in custody, you know, we're in a real pickle right now as far as like paying for our children's services, and this plan is very, very targeted towards the children that we serve. So under the Medicaid is a new program that's come out in the last year. It's the 1915I waiver. And these are individuals that have serious mental illness, or the word serious and severe, they're used interchangeably. Severe substance abuse disorders, brain injuries, intellectual developmental disabilities. You are eligible for, or that person is eligible to put in an application for the 1915I. And if you've been around when we've talked about the Registry of Unmet Needs, that is the run that happens just before the Innovations waiver. This is the new B3 Registry of Unmet Needs category under the 1915I waiver. And so the thing to point out here is that this is a process. No longer are we going to an agency as a caregiver. Am I able to say, hey, I need respite. I need this child to go to someone else for 2 hours a day for the next 2 days to get respite so I can take care of myself. For instance, if I needed to go to a doctor's appointment or whatever, I have to plan this ahead of time. And so basically what we're looking at with the 1915I is that you're going to go in and you're going to apply for this, and it's a process. And so between now and when the Child and Family Specialty Plan launches, you'll have to go through your managed care organization. And on the previous slide, it'll tell you where to go when you click on those managed care. But it's one of those things that may take about 45 days to 60 days to have in place. So I always encourage our families that are serving in this capacity, go ahead and get this put in place so that when you're ready to use it, it's there. And you know, what does the 1915I have? It has the respite care that I talked about. It's got transitional, it's money to help someone move. Like if they're coming out of a residential setting and they're moving into the community, or foster or group home. So it's, you know, do we need to buy a bed? Do we need to you know, get certain clothing if they've been in a, you know, residential facility where they wore nothing but the same outfits, you know, different ones each day, but they're all the same. When you move out into the community, you've got to have clothes and things like that. Furniture, moving expenses, utilities, all of that. And this is not just for children under the age of 18. This is also eligible for adults. We've got supported employment that'll be there, and that's for ages 16 and up. Community living and support. We've got bathing, dressing, personal care, hygiene. It helps with that. It can give you someone to work one-on-one for so many hours a day. I have a child in my care that gets 10 hours a week of community living and support. And that is to prepare for transition out into the real world, where they're working on going and shopping at the grocery store, setting 2 weeks ago, set up a bank account, go and look at cars at a car lot. So, and then there's some transitional living stuff here that you can do when you're looking at substance abuse. And so if you need someone to help manage your finances, or help you find somewhere to live. That's also included there. And so the 1915I has got some amazing stuff for those that are eligible, and it is not just for individuals that have intellectual disabilities or developmental delays. It's also for substance abuse and serious mental illness. So innovations waiver, innovations is only eligible to a certain population that meet the criteria, and it's pretty extensive, but we have a handout here that can walk you through this. We are looking at individuals that qualify, that have a developmental delay and or intellectual disability. And there's areas of functioning they look at, different things. And so that's one that is very specific. But I would encourage you, if you need more information about that, is to contact your managed care organization. And then the other thing to remember is that our children that are in custody are also eligible for CAPC services for our medically fragile children. And then adults, I just added that in there also. And so and you're looking at children that have significant medical impacts. This is what I call my favorite slide of this, because these are programs that are out there right now that offer support for our children. And it's, again, not just eligible for children in custody. We're looking at many different walks. And so One Simple Wish is any child in need. And it's not just that wording is confusing. It's not just connected to children in adoption, foster, or kinship. So it can be a child with a disability. It could be a child, that is in a situation where the parents couldn't afford something. And the beauty of this is we've seen parents fill this out and be able to take their children to see the beach for the first time and pay for transportation and mileage. And the key here is that the amount not be over $450. I think Connie and Kate, if you can weigh in on that. It's $4 something.
Yeah, it's $450.
Okay, $450. And it's beautiful. The way to do that is we have actually created a submission form. The wishes must be under $425. And one child at a time. So if you have 5 children in your home, you could apply for Johnny today, Sarah next month, things like that. And they're getting very picky about what they approve. But if you can tie it to the child, and if the child was to leave the home, let's say you're a caregiver, a substitute caregiver, a resource parent, if the child left the home, could that item go with that child? And so it may be a conversation around an iPad. And so if the child left the home, the iPad could then go with them. And so they're looking at things that are not for mom and dad or grandma or the caregiver, but specifically for the child. So feel free to do that on here. Fill that out, and again, you'll get this PowerPoint where it has the link. Another option is Care Portal, and there are certain counties in North Carolina that are covered right now, Iredell being the #1 county that's covered. But Care Portal, again, you would put in a request, and from that request, someone in the community that they're serving will pick up that request. Sometimes it was school supplies, sometimes it's clothing to start back school, different things like that. And Care Portal is connected to a lot of churches in the communities. So there's that one. Medically fragile children, and it's not just connected. I need to change that wording before I send it to you. It's not just connected to the children that we're talking about tonight. It's connected to any child that's medically fragile. And so we've got people that are getting, I know a lady who asked for a Trip Trap high chair. We had another lady that wanted a specific stroller because there was an oxygen tank and different things like that to go along with it. And so they're looking, these are things not covered by Medicaid traditionally or insurance, but incredible programs. Show Hope is specifically for children that are medically fragile and adopted. But that's another avenue. And then Life Song, and this is one that I just learned about on our own family's personal journey, is for therapies after adoption. So a lot of people think that, you know, after adoption, you've got Medicaid, but there's very specialized therapies for trauma and adoption specific, and Life Song will actually help you with that. And it's a lot of these are national organizations. I believe Meg Smile is the only one that's just specific to North Carolina. All right. Kinship specific information. And so kinship is defined as a caregiver that is kin to the child. So they're through marriage, through blood, they're kin to the child, they're part of the family unit, extended family unit. So if you're a grandparent that's taking care of a child, you're considered kinship under that definition. If you're an aunt, kinship. In the past, we've used the word kinship loosely for, like, if a teacher was to take in a child. But that has been defined very clearly as that is fictive kin. They know the child, but they're not connected through marriage or blood. And so, or adoption, I forgot that one. It's marriage, blood, or adoption. And so there's very specific information around kinship in North Carolina. There's been some big changes lately, and exciting changes in that previously kinship caregivers that were caring for a child that indeed was in custody was not eligible to receive a stipend. It would be, you know, grandma would take in the child. DSS contacted and said, you know, we want you to take this child. In the past, you wouldn't get a financial stipend. Whereas now you could be eligible for a financial stipend, and you would get half of the monthly board payments. And then if you became licensed as a foster parent in North Carolina, then you would be eligible for the full board payment. And so it's incentivizing to actually get the licensure process. And that means that you get the specific training needed or that they desire for you to have. But it's not, a lot of times it's not required, and you could do half of it until the permanency is achieved for the child. And so the permanency would be if they were to give you guardianship, if they were to give you custody, if you were able to adopt the child. And so it's exciting that this is available now. We've got a lot of families that are taking advantage of this. There are very specific trainings that are on this website, Fostering NC, around kinship. And there's actually some information about what I just spoke about here. So it's tapped into there. Another incredible resource was created by our friends at Creating a Family. And so it is here. And if you go under kinship, when you go to their website right here where it says legal options in North Carolina, if you start right here, and this, I mean, I literally, when I get phone calls around these questions, so I'm the aunt, I'm taking care of my nephew, I would start here, and it's is your grandchild or another relative's child living with you? And the answer, if I was the aunt and he was my nephew, then it would be yes. Is child welfare, child protective services involved? and we'll just pretend that it's yes. This walks you through a very simple program to give you advice and how to carry forward with different things. Has DSS been awarded legal custody of the child? Has the case been to court? And have they said this child is in custody of Buncombe County or Wake County? And so I'm going to put in here, no. Let's just say that it didn't, but this was an agreement. So this is an outcome that can be achieved through that, and they will break it down and things like that. But if I go in here and put yes, then it's going to keep me going. Do I want to become a licensed foster parent? Do I not want to become a licensed foster parent? It walks you through it. There are so many outcomes in here. There's different things over here. There's information, but if you go through and answer these questions, they have done an incredible job of simplifying this whole legal process for our kin providers. And I mean, there's probably not a week that goes by that I don't recommend this to 3 or 4 different families that call in for support from us. It's good stuff. So moving on, there's also a program for our kinship around KinGap. And KinGap, we talk about licensed and kinship care. We talked about getting a license, being a licensed kinship provider. Then it starts to break it down. And so when a child turns 14 or older, even if you're not becoming a foster parent, you're eligible for what they call KinGap. And again, this is a child that's in custody, not an agreement that's just made between mom and grandma or mom and cousin, things like that. This is a true situation where a child is in custody. Then they're eligible for what we call KinGap. And this breaks it down for you. And again, you have to go through your county and ask about this. And my next statement is not a knock to any worker in the system, but there has been such a tremendous turnover for our workforce with child welfare that there are, I mean, KinGap is one of those that we don't hear a lot about, and our workers may not know about it. And so we're pushing this information out. And you may literally have to say to them, what about KinGap? And then, I mean, I've even encouraged people to hand this flyer out or email it to them, but it's all right here. Again, the kinship care from the state, and then here is the actual the kinship legal options that we just talked about. But this is how do you become a licensed kinship foster parent? And it's actually a video that was a very short video, which will walk you through that process. I was just talking to an aunt this afternoon, and I sent this to them, like, this is what you need to do to ask for it. But the difference is, and where the confusion comes in, that child has to be in custody, meaning they've been taken into foster care. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure that you had information around is the different trainings and things that are on our website at Foster Family Alliance. There's very specific trainings around specific mental health topics. How do you access the services in the system? That's one of those that's difficult. I mean, who do you call to get therapy going? So there's some training there, and I'll make sure that you have the website. Also, we've got some IEP and 504 training specifically around children that are in custody, but then that information could also be used in how to request an evaluation for your child, or how do you handle when you don't agree with the decision, a dispute resolution process. We have a lot of training around substance abuse or substance exposure in utero. And so there's FASD, which is fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, and there's also some around drugs in utero and the exposure and what it does to a child's brain. Another one that comes up quite frequently is what is the difference between guardianship and custody? We hear about, I have custody of my grandchild. And what does that look like versus guardianship? And so we've got some training on that. And then we've been talking about the kinship foster care. We've got specific training around that. The other thing that we're super excited about and proud about is that we're created a network statewide where we can connect you to clothing and foster closets across the state. And so the North Carolina Giving Tree would be where you go to get that information. And then we will connect you. We serve the child from the moment they get involved with child welfare. So think about a child where they're just doing investigations or they're just doing home visits and trying to determine the level of support the family may need, all the way to when the child is in achieves permanency, whether that be reunification, all the way to adoption and everything in between. We want to make sure that our caregivers are supported. We had a birth parent call not too long ago. She was getting her child back. And the one thing that she needed was a toddler bed. So we put it out to our network and was able to get that toddler bed in. And once that toddler bed was in, that child was allowed to go home. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. There's an intake form that you can fill out if you need help. And it's very specific of what do you need? Do you need clothing size 4T for the winter? Do you need shoes size 8? I mean, you'd be very specific about it, and then it's sent out to where the clothing closets in the area in which you live. Couple of other processes that I wanted to make sure that I put on your radar tonight is if you have a complaint around child welfare in North Carolina, the state has created a process through constituent concerns. And what we have done is put this together. If you don't agree with the situation, there are ways that you can walk through. And so this right here talks about it. The constituent concerns information is on here. And it talks about working chain of command, those kinds of things. And so we wanted to make sure that you have that process. The other one is understanding how the court process works. And so there's a very, laid out process, child welfare, and it's kind of confusing for those of us that are not court connected or legal background. But child welfare cases are heard in juvenile court. And the first time I heard that, the first thing that popped in my mind was juvenile justice. And it's very different. It's juvenile court. And this walks through the process so that you can hear. And so adjudication hearing, it gives you the timelines. Adjudication should be held, within 60 days. And adjudication is a big meeting, and you have all kinds of different scenarios, and it would take us hours to unpack this. But if you're involved with the case, you could walk through this process and see it, and it breaks it down so that you guys can see that. The other thing is, I remember getting a call at one point in time about taking a teen in who was going off to college. And all I could think of was, I cannot afford to pay for this kid to go to college. Like, what is out there for this kid? And so that information is here. And there's the different programs that are offered in North Carolina around that. And so we're looking at children age 13 and up. And there's other things, but it breaks it down very simply for you. And it's here what can be paid for. We have people on staff who have figured out how to do the college funding piece of it. Another resource is this is one of a handout that was created by our friends at Stephanie, help me.
Council for Children's Rights. Thank
you, Stephanie. I'm sorry. But you know, thank you, sorry. Long day. But making sure that a child is enrolled in a timely manner into school. And because here's the reality, if you have a child that comes into your home, whether it be your grandchild or whether it be a foster child, you can't take 2 weeks off of work while the school figures out, you know, how they're going to support this child or what school they're going to go into or what classroom and those kinds of things. And so this is some information around that. That's a whole different webinar that we could spend some time in, but I wanted you to have just enough information. And you can be able to, the other cool thing that they have created is that, well, that's a broken link. I'll go back and fix that before we send it out. But it is, who do you contact if you're in Wake County and you need to enroll a child with foster care and you don't know who to call to ask all the gazillion questions you would have? That would be what the contact would be. And then we have ESSA. And there's some information under here. And then there's some terms that are used around best interest determination meetings. Again, this was created by what Stephanie just said, and it's information that I mean, it's very, very good information, and it talks about how making decisions for children in child welfare is a joint responsibility, and it breaks it down. You'll hear about best interest determination meetings. And one of the things that always confused me was, you know, people were saying, oh, we're going to do a bid meeting or we're going to do a BIP meeting or an FBA and things like that. So we've tried to put this information in there so that you have it. But ultimately, the thing that we want to make sure that you walk away with tonight and have information, if it's not for you, it's for someone else, is what can we do to help support you through everything that we just talked about? Is that we have staff, we have part-time employees all across the state broken into regions that know your counties, that know people in the school systems, that know people in the child welfare organizations and agencies, that we can come along and help support you. So this is our information to our website that I promised earlier. I'd make sure it's in your hand. There's ways to contact us, multiple different ways, and there's a gazillion resources that are here. The other thing is you're not alone in this process. If you have someone that needs help, that wants help, and we have online support groups. And so you would scroll down here and get your regions, and then you would literally click the region that you're in. So if I lived in Yadkin County, I'm in region 3. And then I would turn around and click region 3. And it would pop up and I would be able to join this group. And you would have to answer some questions. You know, what is your connection to child welfare? Where do you live? Those kinds of things. But we have people that are trained to be able to help. And I like the word, we're not going to coach you. We're going to come along beside of you because we have that lived experience. And we're going to be able to walk through the process with you. And every single day we have people jumping in and offering different information. There's also a very large support group on Facebook, and this Facebook group is for kinship. And I need to, but it's for those that are interested in being foster parents, for those that are current foster parents, as well as adoptive and kinship caregivers. Or if you, we try to keep this to actually our caregivers. And so you can join that also. And then the other thing that goes out once a month, we're not going to blow your email up. I promise that's one of our big goals. But when you get our newsletter, it's going to be full of information for you to be able to sign up for trainings, to sign up for events that are happening across the state. And so our newsletters are just very rich in material to point you in the direction. And the thing about it is that newsletter is not just for our caregivers, it's for professionals that we partner with, as well as you know, the state level, the county levels, it's everywhere in between. And, you know, I had one church that contacted me and said, how do I find out what you guys are up to? Maybe we want to come along beside and volunteer. And I said, the newsletter, that's where you're going to find all the upcoming events. Statewide resources. This is something that we've been working on for multiple years, but a resource family directory. And so what we're looking at is you'll be able to click into this. It takes a while to load just because there's so many, but what we can do is go across the bottom, and I'm just going to click Burke County. And these are all of the resources that we've been able to find in Burke County. And you know, there's a thrift store that on Saturdays has 25% off from 9:30 to 1:30. And so find your county and see what's available in your counties. Here's Caribous County. And it goes all the way through, and it's any possible scenario. And as we hear about clothing closets, as we hear about food, as we hear, I mean, any possible thing that will help support you in that county is listed. We talked about managed care organizations. Well, here's Caribous County, and Partners is their MCO, and there is all the information that you would need to contact them. And so we're trying to take the work out of this and give you the information, so you don't have to spend your time trying to figure out what's out there. The other thing I would ask is, if you get into your county and you're like, wait a minute, they don't have X, Y, and Z, send it to us so we can add it to here for other families across North Carolina. I'm giving you a lot of information. We've got about 11 minutes left, so I'm gonna skip down here to the Medicaid Ombudsman. Any issues with Medicaid in the state of North Carolina, you should call the Medicaid Ombudsman line. And the thing about the Medicaid Ombudsman is they have to take the call. They find out the information that you're needing help with, or the struggle that's happening. And so for my child, I wasn't able to secure a service because there was no one contracted in Buncombe County to do that service. And so they immediately were able to unlock some situations that I couldn't push open. And they were able to get the service going through different avenues. And so for those of you that are familiar with Pisgah Legal Services, they now have the Medicaid Ombudsman program from the state, and they are doing an incredible job at helping us navigate. And so when you go back all the way to that one of those first slides when we talked about tailored plans, standard plans, all of that, they have been instrumental in helping navigate people through that process. The constituent concerns that we talked about earlier, the welfare, the child welfare issues, if you'll click on that, and that'll give you the information that you need for that. Again, good stuff. You know, you can submit it online, you can call them. And then the last one on this page is actually a recruitment site for those that might be interested in foster care. And so it breaks it down very carefully, and you're able to go through and learn. The one thing to know in North Carolina is that there's a licensing process, and you can choose to be licensed by your county, or you can choose to be licensed by a private agency. And it took me about a year to understand that process, because everyone kept throwing names out. And then finally, I had to sit down with someone to explain that. But the licensing process here, there are very specific questions that this is asked, for you to kind of reflect, like, are you in a place that you could be a foster parent or kinship provider? Selecting a licensing agency, what we just spoke about, and that's all there. But it's just really rich with information about becoming a caregiver, a substitute caregiver, in North Carolina. Whoop, sorry. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is that we have some funding to help with advocacy in the school system. And when you're looking, and we're doing everything from charter schools to traditional public schools. We've got some private school cases where we're helping the private schools understand the impact of trauma on a child and their education. And so we have that process set up, and it's statewide. So if you are a substitute caregiver, meaning you're not the birth parent, and you need help advocating, we can be a resource for you, in the school system. We've been very fortunate to have different funders around that. And lastly, here's some information to go directly, to contact us. I have listed my specific information as well as a handout, for, what we do as FFA. And so it's there. There's a QR code, and what we can do to help you. So the last statement before we open it up to questions is that, we are in charge of, really recruiting caregivers in the state of North Carolina. So if you are interested, and this is like one of those times you want to just stick your toe in and hear something, and you want a little more communication around it, and you want to talk to one of us about it, feel free to email us at the info@FFA, or go to our website and send in a sign up to connect with us. And we will definitely have staff call you. Hopefully I'll be able to, if you say that you're in Sampson County, we've got staff down that way. And so I'll connect you with someone that's familiar with that area, and that can be a resource for you ongoing. So let's look at, let's see. Oh, Stephanie, thank you for putting that in there. Beautiful. So if you have Alliance, can you appeal for a tailored plan for complex kiddos? So if you're with Alliance already, Shannon, you have a tailored plan. Were you denied? And that's something that I would love. Like, one of us can help walk you through, or contact the ombudsman. And Stephanie put that broken link, and I'll add it before we send that out. Sherry's saying amazing resources. We have an amazing intern right now that is killing it and helping us get that stuff together. And we're not just pulling from 211 or different things like that in North Carolina. Shannon had to drop off. Yep. So any other questions from anyone that's on here that you haven't put in the chat? No one? I've either overwhelmed them, or they're just completely, if you're like me, you're exhausted, or you understood it.
I don't have a question, but I do want to say thank you. This was extremely informative. And I'm excited to get the slides so I can click on
Yes.
some links and check them out. I really am. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Tim and Kathy, you've got your hand raised. Hit your space bar and it'll unmute. Oh, gotcha. There we go. And Susan says she wants to go further in the court processes and the college funding. And again, Susan, when you start digging into it, I mean, I've been in this for 15 years and there are lots of times I have to go look because it's very complicated and it's overwhelming the amount of information to learn. And so feel free to reach back, reach out to us and we'll help walk you through that. Sometimes just a conversation will help you and we can, guide you in the next direction.
Gail, as far as the food resources, is that the county you live in or the county the child is from?
Oh, good question. It's the county that you live, where the child resides. So look at it that way, not where the child originated, but where you live in and the child is with you. So I have a child in my home right now out of Gaston County that's receiving the NC HOP. And so, but it comes out of Buncombe. But here's the interesting part. It's billed to Gaston Medicaid, if that makes sense. So it's being billed to Medicaid, but it's being handled through here, through Buncombe. So Carla, the answer to that is yes. She's asking if the NC HOP program is going to be expanded. That is the plan. The reason that we're really trying to put this information out there is that we need people to use it and give feedback and kind of guide these pilot counties so that it can go larger and get the adequate funding that it needs to continue. But honestly, I signed up and I thought, well, first, let me see if we're even eligible, because a lot of times when you are a foster parent, you may not be eligible to get extra services like this. Like we can't get food stamps or EBT, things like that. And so, everyone's like, no, you're going to have to pay this back. And, I checked with the state, everything, and it's good quality. And that's the other goal of the program is they want to put good quality food in the hands of the child and the family to see if it will change the outcomes down the road. So they're looking at like, you're not going to get cake and sugar-based drinks and things like that. You're going to get healthy vegetables. You're going to get meat. We got 2 packs of organic hamburger meat. Last time I went to the grocery store, it was like $8 a pound for organic, ground beef. And here was 2 of them in the package. And I actually called in and I said, what is the value of this? And they estimated around $300 a week. And I don't know that it was $300 worth of food, but it was enough to say it made a dent in each week that it's coming to my house. And it's kind of fun to get something, a lot of times, when it comes in, it's like, oh, what's in here? So we are here for you. If you are even remotely thinking, I may want to, get some more information about foster care, reach out to us. We have some informational sessions set up, coming up that are virtual. They're very intimate, 2 or 3 people, sometimes in them, sometimes a little larger. But, we will answer your questions and maybe you decide this is not for me, but I want to support another family that's doing this. I want to support a grandma that's taking in her 3 grandchildren, or a grandfather that we had a grandfather not long ago who took in 5 grandchildren. And he was single and he just needed a lot of support. And so maybe your role would be to come along and take a meal to them once a month, or maybe, is to check in. What do you need? What errands do you need run? So there's so many different ways you can plug in to support our families. All right. Well, it's 8:30 on the dot. And if you're like me, it's time to wind down and, get the kids to bed, and we appreciate you coming. The video will be available on our website. You've got to give me about a day or so to get it up and going. Kate will email you a certificate, and you should get the certificate tonight if our new plugin works with our Zoom. It will tell you that you attended and go from there. And if you are a licensed foster care person, you may use this for your license and renewal. And be sure to share with others also. Thank you. Have a good night. Thanks, Stephanie, for jumping in on my brain went, woo.
No problem at all. It was a great presentation. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carla, thank you for what you're doing.
Hey Gail, I have a quick question for you
Oh.
once Ready's off.
Okay.
Thank you. I was like
You're-
15 minutes late, but thank you. Have a good
Bye.
one.
What's up?
Okay. I put the last one in the waiting room. So I was looking at this